down here? Have you had a chance to fish Toledo Bend? I know you fished Rayburn plenty.
Yeah, I've been to Rayburn a few times, never been to Toledo.
No. You should come. There's big ones here.
I'm shocked right now. The goat has never been to Toledo Bend.
Nope, I've drove around, never been on it.
What about Rayburn? What about his sister lake, Rayburn, Andy?
He's fished Rayburn. I've covered him in a tournament at Rayburn. Yeah.
Shangle at Rayburn. I think 2013 when I won the first AOY, we were there.
A couple, 3 years ago, I actually tried to follow Morgan on Rayburn. you have not experienced smoking the bed until you tried to follow this guy anywhere. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember that well. I remember I had the tail on fire the whole day. I didn't know where I was going to catch one or if I was going to catch one. I do remember that vividly.
You know what, Andy? And it kind of dovetails into the subject of the day because that was a spring tournament, and as it so happened, the weather that week was not good. It was not good. It was difficult, and I think that's one of the 4 subjects that we plan to deal with. Let's just go ahead and just dive into this because we're right on time as far as the timing. We're going to talk about the goats, 4 laws, 4 rules, 4 points that you need to focus on to be successful in the spring. And the top among those, of course, is the weather, because that is the determining factor of what happens, as I pointed out already, not only week to week, but day to day, sometimes morning to night, and sometimes hour by hour. So that right there is the number 1 factor, wouldn't you say?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, that's what drives everything. That's what drives Mother Nature. As you roll into spring, it's all about temperature and direction of temperature, and that's what kind of drives the bite. And just, you said it very well, that it changes day to day, but it changes hour to hour for sure. So it kind of complicates things. Spring is not super easy. It's the bass rut. It's when you want to be out there. It's when the biggest fish in the lake are coming up and getting caught. You want to be there during the spring, but it's not an easy time to fish because it changes minute to minute.
Definitely. Well, you know what, Andy? Going into this weather patterns, Sandon from Lunker Chasers, you may have met him before. He's an Instagrammer, has a big Instagram account, and helps the fishing community see all the other anglers in the world. And Sandon, you got a couple questions here to lead into this weather patterns. What? Hold on, someone.
Andy's getting a call. The goat's getting a call.
Andy, you getting a call there? People, you're just too popular.
I killed my sound. Can you hear me?
You're good.
So.
We can hear you now, Andy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Let me.
You're all good. You're all good, Andy. It's just.
Just roll with it. Just roll with it. If somebody calls, they call. Not a big deal.
Good, Andy. You're popular, man. It's probably some other show that's trying to get you on here. We got you.
Well, I hit reject on it, and it's killed my sound. I could barely hear you guys.
Yeah, no, you're good, Andy. We can hear you just fine, my man.
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
So, but Andy,
okay, I'll try to be able to hear you guys. It may come back.
Okay, give it a shot.
Yeah, you're all good.
I was wondering what was going on. I was like, wait a minute, is that me or is that him or what is that? What's going on?
Hey, it's okay. It's
never stops raining. In the springtime when everything's happening, it never stops.
Well, no, it is a busy time of year, and I got people on the live feed saying the EBS is going off there on your phone. So.
It was, yeah, absolutely. Original. That was the original sound.
Well, Sandon, leading into this weather patterns, everyone here wants to learn how to become a better fisherman. Now, what are the questions here you got for Andy here leading into weather patterns in the spring?
Oh yeah, well, now that we are in the, I would say the post-spawn part of the year, storms follow. Obviously pre-fronts. What do you do to better prepare yourself to fish before a front?
Oh, what I do to prepare? I mean, that kind of starts in advance sometimes with me. I know a lot of times we go, and when our practice starts, there's a front coming. There's a big change in weather. I try to prepare for that. Like you're saying post-spawn, a weather front, probably a cold front's probably what you're talking about.
Yeah, yes.
Well, and again, it's kind of like I said earlier, it's direction of temperature. So you're talking a front this time of year that its highs maybe the mid-80s to highs in maybe the low to mid-70s. I know we went through that at Pickwick, but, we had some highs that were in the 80s that went to highs in the 60s. It really doesn't back up anything that much. post spawn, you're talking, here it's usually May, bumping into June. It doesn't back things up like, say, it does from February and March. I know from where you guys are, you're talking about Toledo Bend. You get that front in February where it's dropping that water temperature maybe from 60 back down to 50. Well, that'll back them up quite a bit, maybe for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, whatever. And I know you get a lot of winds with that, a lot of north winds. It kind of beats some places up. Post spawn's not that critical because it doesn't knock that water temperature back to, say, 60 degrees. It might knock it like it did at Pickwick from 69 degrees down to 65 degrees. It really don't have that much effect. Fish still bite, but they get a little more moody. It's kind of that center of the day kind of sucks. Early and late is kind of when they bite. And anywhere I've ever been, when you got a post spawn, then you have a cold front that comes in on your post spawn, it just kind of makes the bite a little funky where it's kind of early and late. That's basically what I've seen, throughout my career.
So you're saying that, like, the biggest factor is water temperature, because I mean, obviously one of the things that happens during this time of year is you have these pressure systems that come in. Obviously it changes the temperatures, but it also just changes just the ambient pressure. And I mean, there are tons of theories out there about the way that fish respond to pressure in the air and in the water. I mean, do you have any theories or thoughts or beliefs or non-beliefs about that stuff?
I get that a lot. Hey, what's the pressure doing today? What's the weather pattern going to do? Man, it's going to get cold. The pressure's going to be high. It's going to really suck. I don't really put that into play in my head because I know when I get the tournament schedule out, I've got to catch those fish on March 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Or I've got to catch them on May 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. Well, regardless of those conditions, I've got to fish through it, and I have to catch a limit of fish, and I have to catch a big 5 bass limit somehow. I don't really let that factor in that, man, the pressure's high, I'm going to suck today. I'm not going to get any bite. I don't fall into that because I've caught them before with the guides freezing up on the rod that never got above freezing. I always take that factor that says, yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit slower, but there's some damn way to catch them. So all I need to do is catch 5 or 6 or 7 today, and that's what I'm going to focus on. So I know it kind of sounds silly a little bit, like, everybody else kind of really gathers around, man, it's going, it's a post-front deal, it sucks, it's going, it's going to be really tough behind the front. I don't really put that into play that often. I just got to figure out how to catch 3 or 4 in the morning and 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and a lot of times that's going to give you a good check at the end of the day.
Definitely, Andy. That's something that the going into it and looking at how to prepare yourself. People always get psyched out about, a front's coming in or something along those lines. But what we see definitely in the post spawn is those fish maybe getting more active there leading up to that big front and that big storm. I mean, heck, Sandon was just driving through South Carolina, and they had a big old storm there today, or coming through, and in Texas we had one yesterday. And so, Andy, are there any specific lures or tactics you use when you're actually on the water during that tournament and that front is moving through?
Well, yeah, there is really. I mean, just like a beaver lake or a highland reservoir where that water's clear, you can take advantage of these fronts too. I've caught some really big bags on these frontal days. Because in the springtime, you're talking, in March, April, May, you get these winds with that front. You get that big north push. And as long as that wind is blowing, I've caught some of the biggest stringers I've ever caught on those frontal days. You take advantage of that weather when it's coming through, because it's going to make them bite a little bit, especially when the front starts to go through. When you get all that big push of wind, take advantage of that. A lot of times that's going to be your best day throughout the week. As it rolls around and it gets a little post-frontal and it really cools off, it gets really clear, really bluebird, things really start to change and they really tighten up. And you may even have a big frost out there on the ground when you get up to go fishing. But you can always say when that front rolls through and it gets extremely cold, right at daylight, they will bite. I don't care how cold it gets. If it's 5 degrees, they will bite right at daylight. I don't know why that is. I guess it's the transition from dark to daylight. They're going to bite a little bit. And if you can start in a good location where you can catch 2 or 3 or maybe a limit of fish, man, you'll be leaps and bounds ahead, because usually it's dead in the center of the day. At 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, they start to bite a little more. So you just take advantage of that time frame. And it's always pretty much held true, regardless of how severe the front is. That's been a daylight deal when it gets really cold. And as it goes throughout the day, it gets tougher and tougher until the end of the day. Usually about the time you're checking in is when they start to bite, and that's just typically the way it goes.
Well,
Is this a time of year where you're going to utilize a whole bunch of different baits and lures? What's your approach as far as that goes? Because with the changeability of the weather and the conditions and supposedly fish behavior, is this one of those things where you're gonna be out there with 4 rods on one side, 4 rods on the other, or how do you approach that as far as like trying to set yourself up for a day?
Well, when you approach a frontal day like that, I like to put something right in their face. That's some of the days that I guess some of your flippers tend to do a little better. The guys that fish cover do a little better. Even some of the guys that are cranking structure do a little better as far as, you take a 2.0 and one of our prime times, bump it in through a tree. That's the day you want to crawl the bait through the tree, not around the edges. You kind of catch fish more in the center of things. They just tighten up to that cover. Whether you take a jig or a piece of plastic and you get it down in his face, or you crank across his back, is kind of what you got to do. You got to get it really close to that fish. And the chances are you get it in the right exact spot, he will bite, front or not.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I got a question here from Randy on the live feed, and he's asking, his lake's post-spawn, and, fronts are moving through. What's the #1 search bait you're going to be using, for that post-spawn condition, post-spawn condition right now? Front's moving in. What's the one reaction bait you're using to cover water to find fish?
When that comes through, again, the post-spawn deal, and he said his lake's in post-spawn, I like to take a crankbait. Anything that's any of our square bills, any to the long bill baits that might cover anywhere from 3 feet down to 15 feet. I like to keep moving and shaking. Like I said, those fish still will bite. Once they post-spawn and they go through a shad spawn type deal, that's kind of like we were at Pickwick when we had that big front come through. Those fish still fired up. They fired every morning. And if you can cover a ton of water with a search bait, such as any type of crankbait, whether you're fishing the shallow grass or you're fishing out on the drops, get something that you can cover a lot of ground with in practice, especially to find that hot area to where you need to be at daylight the morning of that front when it actually bluebirds off.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Quick. Make a lot of casts and move really, really fast and find that area that's productive.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Well, no, that's something that those post fronts coming in, Sandon, we were talking about this earlier. We got another question for Andy here dealing on the backside of those weather systems.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask was, how do you prepare yourself for that post-spawn, or not post-spawn, but post-front? And I think you just covered that pretty well. What other kind of baits would you be have tied on in that condition?
Yeah, that post-front condition.
For that condition, it's very basic for me. I know you guys know Nick and Joel both. I'm a very basic guy. When it comes to, I'll have a deep diving bait on, I'll have a shallow diving bait on. I may have 3 of each one on that's going, I might have something that's going to go to 20 feet, something that's run 15, something runs 10, something that runs 2 foot deep. I've got several different things tied on. But as far as that goes, it's 3 or 4 different crankbaits. I'll have a spinner bait tied on. I'll have like a chatterbait tied on, a couple of pieces of plastics, and a jig. Then, if I think it's going to be extremely tough, I know at Pickwick when everything started getting a little more pressured, we had those fronts rolling in. It's starting to get sunny. It was cold in the mid to low 40s every morning, which is kind of odd for this time of year here at home. I'll have a shaky head on. I wanted some bites, and I want to get some bites right at daylight. So that's what I'm going to try to do.
So the timing of the call is perfect because we have a deal with it. So tonight until I believe it's midnight tomorrow, Nick, buy one get one Livingston baits.
Trying to get Andy up there. Yep, definitely. So going to our first break here, we're going to change up the topics here a little bit, get some more questions answered. But Joel, you can tell them about the deal tonight, and I'll get the graphic up there for you.
Yeah, so until midnight tomorrow, buy one Team Livingston Series bait, you get a free Pro Series. So basically, you buy one, get one free. So go buy any of the Team Livingston Series. Those are the ones in the blue pack. Those are the multi-touch, EBS multi-touch. You get a free Pro Series. This deal is good until midnight tomorrow. So it's a pretty quick deal. It's gonna come and go quickly, but over the course of the next 40 minutes or so, as we talk to Andy, we're going to run through a handful of the baits that are kind of inside that kind of deal umbrella that you could possibly utilize. So pay attention to that deal. Buy one Team Livingston series in the blue packet. You get a free Pro series until midnight tomorrow. And as we move into kind of our second, I guess you would say, realm or second law, Andy, now you exist on kind of a little bit of a unique system. It's the Tennessee Valley, the Tennessee River. The TVA is known for current and the way that fish respond to the current. And I would say that as far as the whole spring fishery goes, current is, if it's not as important as weather, it's awfully damn close, wouldn't you say?
Yep, we're trying to get Andy back on the. We muted him because his phone call there. We got to get him back on the ringer.
He's
there.
muted.
Hold on one second there, boys. Andy, we can hear you. You can't, or we can't hear you, but you can hear us. So we're gonna get you back on here, Andy, and rolling real quick.
Andy's back. Andy's muted. Some of the joys of live stuff.
Yep, some of the joys of the live feed here. Hold on. I think it's like a constant gift with Andy scratching his head. Andy, you're all good to go, my man. It's just getting you unmuted on our end here. Now he's gone. No worries there. Well, Sandon, this is something that in South Carolina.
He's back again. He's back again. Hang tight though.
All righty. Andy, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Let's get this figured out here. He's talking. Hey, Andy, click your on the top of your screen there. On the top of your screen, click that little microphone and get you out there. And let's get you back on. Now? There we go. We're back on now.
Sorry.
He's back.
Alrighty. So now, Joel, I don't know why you're mute. There you go. Now you're good to go, Joel.
No, I'm good. I'm good. So the question or comment, Andy, was that number 2 on the list of important factors to look at, laws, rules, whatever you want to call this whole spring thing, is current. Living where you live and fishing the Tennessee River chain like you do, current is a huge, huge deal. And this time of year, I mean, obviously it dictates a whole lot of it during all times of the year. But this time of year, you've got conditions because of high water, because of low water. The current plays a huge factor, does it not?
Yeah, it actually current probably trumps everything.
Definitely, that's a trump card. That's a trump card. That's a real true trump card.
They want position where you can catch them as easily. So if you got a little current, they're a lot more predictable. If you don't have current, they're just like any other lake. They can be anywhere. They can be by any piece of structure or not on any structure at all. So that's really the only difference. So as far as weather goes, weather is kind of current here on the TVA system, especially post-spawn. Weather, current, and all that are a combination that you have to really pay attention to. Earlier in the year, it's a little more critical, but as far as post-spawn like it is right now, hell, if you got current, you're going to catch some bass.
Definitely. Well, Andy, I was talking to you a little earlier here about current and fishing on the TVA, and we were talking a little bit about how you keep your nose down and grind, as most of the guys are out there idling, trying to look for those offshore schools and try and use their electronics. And I know you're using your electronics, but you're covering water. Talk us through when that current is pumping. What are you doing to find those? What are you doing to find those schools that are chowing down at that moment? How do you approach that and try and cover as much water as you can to find those active schools?
Yeah, you kind of said it right there. I'm trying to cover as much water as I can. I'm going to pick up something. I really like to crank when these fish first get out. And I like I said, I mean, you don't have to fish deep to find a school, especially these post-spawn bass. And what I'm saying deep, I fish a lot of stuff that's shallower than 10 feet deep. I find a lot of these schools in 4 feet of water or 6 feet of water. And I kind of call those nuggets. It's something that, or a school of bass that really not a lot of people are going to find, and it's never a huge school, but it might be a place that I can catch 3, 6, 10.
If you find a place, a little nugget you can catch 10, you've got yourself a really nice little gold nugget with a little diamond dust on it. But it's about covering a lot of water and paying attention to kind of what's going on, especially bait movement. When you got bait that's moving in and out of some pockets or in and out of some of these major creeks or even in and out of just some little small areas that the current's kind of hitting the corner, coming around a tree, it's coming around a rock. It could be the end of a boat dock with a light on it. There's always some place there that you can bob around and find a little school of fish. Might be but 3 or 4 fish, but hell, you find 5 or 6 of those places, I mean, it all adds up.
Definitely. Well, you know, Andy, the question again here from the live feed, and Sandon, you can kind of chime in here. You know, on your lakes in South Carolina, are you all seeing any flooding?
Not lately. I guarantee you, with the system that just pulled through, we might see a little bit. But when I was on the lake last week, the water actually looked like it was probably about 6 inches to a foot down from where I was. So no flooding yet. The system that just come through, I mean, it might raise it up to full pull again, but none yet. No,
definitely. Well, Andy, this question comes in then off the live feed is about flood conditions. We're experiencing that here in Texas a little bit. Joel, you know, Toledo Bend, the water's up, you know, up there, and so anywhere down the river, when it gets into those flooding, really high current conditions, is there anything that you do to try and locate those fish when that current is more than just good current? It's almost a destructive current. Are you guys out there fishing, and what are, you know, is there anything you do in those type of conditions? Do you look to go shallow or find major, you know, current breaks? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to start out by going shallower for sure. I mean, it's going to scatter those fish, just like on Toledo. I'm sure a lot of those guys, I haven't even looked at the weigh-in today, but I'm sure a lot of those guys that are doing well there are probably catching them shallow. And historically, it should be a really good deep bite. There should be some really big bags come, you know, deep water. But when you get that flooding in that high water, dude, it just scatters them out. It's going to leave a lot more of those fish on the shoreline that are not playing out there in that current. Or, you know, like you said, you could actually get up and hunt some current breaks, something that's really breaking the current. You know, I know a lot on the Mississippi River way up north. Those guys catch a lot on wing dams and et cetera. It's not so much here on the Tennessee chain. I've seen it out here quite a few times where you can catch some fish on current breaks, et cetera. But usually when we got that high flood water, you're going to catch a lot of those big bags just up shallow, you know, flipping, going out of the bank, casting, cranking, et cetera.
Definitely. Well, and this goes to the other side of the current ticket here is slack current, and this kind of leads off of the question of, you know, when it's slack and no wind, no you know, any kind of water movement whatsoever. So when that water turns off on the TVA or any other place where you got good current, that water turns off. What are you looking for, and how do you attack a situation where all of a sudden you found fish, and then next thing you know, they're gone or they're turned off because that current's turned off? What do you do?
Man, that's tough times right there. That's time to pick up and just go flail around. And I know in the post-spawn deal, years ago when we fished a lot of one-day tournaments right here on Chickamauga and Watts Bar, Gunnersville, etc., when there was no current and we were really catching those fish that were piled up on some of these ledges and drops out on the main lake, when there was no current, that's the time we'd pick up a topwater. I mean, well, I'd say the walking balls. That's the time you're going to pick that up, go fish some hydrilla, some milfoil, some weed edges, something that's not out on the main channel, something that's back away from the main channel where current does not have a damn thing to do with it. That's your best chance. And actually, we've done really well in those situations to when you go out there to fish, when they finally get the water turned on at 12 or 1 o'clock, hell, there's a lot of times we'd have 20 pounds by then or better. Have the tournament won, because if there's no current, it's tough for everybody. Just figure out how to catch a few. Just get away from it totally, get in some of the flatter bays and fish the weeds, etc. And, you know, just kind of use your head a little bit.
We're gonna jump into this break on that note.
When the current was running.
Now, Andy, the walking boss in the Topwater presentation is one that's sort of a, I don't want to say a cure-all, but it's a Band-Aid for almost any condition you run into, correct? I mean there's almost, this time of year I've noticed that a lot of guys will lean on that particular technique a little bit more than they will some of the other techniques, because you can almost always depend on some sort of a top line, no matter what.
You cut out on me, Joel, at the last end there.
Oh, he's talking about topwater fishing. When that current gets slack, when that current gets slack, throw in a walking boss or another topwater lure to get those kind of schooling fish and try and get those schooling fish to come up.
Dependable.
Yeah, dependable.
Right, right. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what those fish are doing. They're scattered out through the grass flats or up on top of a flat. Don't even have to have grass on it. And the walking boss is just a bait that I chose, you know, to where you can cover some water. You're not going to catch them piled up. You're going to have to cover some water. And the bites you get typically are pretty good ones. I mean, that's a big bait. You're covering a lot of water, and you don't have to have but 5 or 6 or 7 bites on that dude. If they eat the bait good, which they usually do, and you land them, you've got a good bag before the current even comes on. You go out there and put the romp on them that afternoon. You've already got a pretty good sack, and some fish you're probably not going to cull.
Definitely.
So if you've got your phone handy, anybody, go to Instagram and check out Lunker Chasers. That's Sandon Wilson's Instagram account. He's got, I don't know, several thousand people on there, and lots of great art, lots of good photos. Sandon, if somebody wants to send you stuff, do they just follow you? Do they send it via private message? How do they send you photos?
Use the hashtag Lunker Chasers. That's the best way to do it because I can check that and I can see everybody's except when their profile is on private. That's the only time that I cannot see it.
Makes sense.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight. It was really good.
Yeah, Sandon, appreciate it, brother. All right, man. Well, Sandon, thank you a ton for hanging out with us on Livingston Live, brother.
Yes, sir. Take care, y'all. Good luck
All
for
right.
the rest of the year, Andy.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
So, to remind people again, real quickly here, tonight until to midnight tomorrow, it's buy one, get one. We've got the Team Livingston series, which is the EBS multi-touch series. If you buy one of those, you get one free Pro Series. Again, this lasts until midnight tomorrow. We've had some kind of extended deals on Livingston Live the last couple of weeks, but this one, kind of a shorter deal. All you got to do is go choose when you log into livingstonlures.com and you kind of roll through whatever it is you're going to order. When you check out, it's a simple deal. You get that free Pro Series, and also Nick, we've got some other giveaways to run through. Run through those real quick if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, we do. So tonight, all you got to do is go on to our Facebook page. So last week, we're giving away 5 Livingston Lure prize packs. 5 Livingston Lures prize packs, and on these, all you need to do is jump on to our Facebook page. All you need to jump onto Facebook and find that post of the Walkin' Boss Part 2. We just got them back in stock. They're a killer topwater lure. They've been out of stock for the past month because people have been catching post-spawn fish on them like crazy. So go on to our Facebook page and type in fish catching machine there in the comment box. Below there in the comment box. Same thing we did last week. We had a different post this week. Jump on there. Type in fish catching machine. We're giving away 5 different Livingston Lures prize packs to you folks that are watching. We love, sharing the love here at Livingston Lures and letting the people know that we value you guys' time and we value you guys here at Livingston Live asking your questions for Andy Morgan. So, and that's a picture I got pulled up right now. That Walkin' Boss Part 2 post on Facebook. Type in fish catching machine. You can also type in there in the comment box below. So we're giving away at the end of the night 5 Livingston Lures prize packs for everyone tuning in with us, hanging out tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the rest of the country was aware that the Walking Boss Part 2 was kind of low in stock. I mean, we had a lot of people asking for that, and as you pointed out, that particular bait over the past year and a half, Nick, has become one of the more popular baits that Livingston produces. I mean, it's good to have that back in stock.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it's something that it catches a ton of fish, and we are glad to have it back because it's something that I actually need some more to go catch some more post-spawn fish here in Texas. So
before we move on to the next subject, I want to remind people that we do have the continuation of the Fish with a Pro sweepstakes, and I want to say that our guest tonight, Andy Morgan, is the pro of the month. Is that right?
He is. So Andy Morgan's got actually a couple days left. Fish with the Pro sweepstakes. If you want to take a chance there to go fishing with Andy Morgan, all you got to do, drop right below in the Instagram or the YouTube description there. That's all you got to do. Click the link. Enter to win a fishing trip with Andy Morgan, Lake Chickamauga. You ain't gonna want to miss it. So let's get rolling on the rest of this topics here. Get some more questions coming in.
I'm gonna jump topics a little bit here, Nick. I'm gonna rearrange these real quickly here. I'm gonna take topic 4 and turn it into topic 3, the brim spawn. And
Oh yeah.
this is one, and it doesn't necessarily have to be brim. It can be pretty much any bait fish spawn. That's another huge factor. This time of year, you have feeding conditions which are different than they are pretty much any other time of year. Let's talk a little bit about how important the spawn for bait fish is this time of year as far as catching fish.
Well, it's super important because when these fish come off the bed, they come off the spawn. These largemouth move out, and I mean they've had a pretty hard few weeks right there. They're in that shallow water. They're in a mode that they want to go out and school up. They go out to school up for one reason, that's to feed. Well, on their way to go out to school up, especially like on the TVA chain or any of these lakes that these fish actually go out and get on structure and they get in these big schools. On their way out, there's always a period of time that they're going to kind of stop off and they're going to check out that shad spawn. That's kind of Mother Nature's way of kind of feeding everything back up. A lot of these predator fish, they're going to stop off, they're going to eat plenty of shad, they're going to get fat quick. Well, you have a lot of also fish that actually are going to come in and they're late spawners. I know here we have it a lot. Back years ago, we had water in Chickamauga by April 15th. Well, these fish kind of would push along and wait a little bit till we had plenty of water. Then that was your major spawn. That was your major push that went to the bank. Now it's May 15th. A lot of our fish should actually come in to spawn, come in late. They come in, up to, maybe up into June. I've seen a lot of big fish up into June spawning. Well, the shad spawn's already happened. So a lot of these fish over the past few years, I've noticed it more and more and more, especially on the TVA chain, anywhere on the TVA chain, brim beds. Brim beds are a major feeder of these bass when they actually come out of the spawning grounds. So you have the shad spawn, which typically happens when that water's somewhere around 70 degrees, and it kind of lingers on. I've seen it linger on 3, 4, 5 weeks before. But the brim spawn happens pretty much every full moon. Once the water gets above 60, 65 degrees, you got a few brim around, and once it rockets up to above 70 degrees, you have a ton of brim spawning. I know here right now the brim and shellcracker are everywhere. And everywhere that there's a big brim bed or a shellcracker bed, there's 3 or 4 bass laying around it right now. That's what they're doing. The shad have already kind of left out. That's a done deal. So now the brim and the shellcracker are kind of feeding everything that's spawning and moving out. They're going to stop off. They're going to eat some of those dudes. Then they'll go out and kind of gather right back up on their traditional summer haunt.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Well, I got a question from the live feed, Andy, there, and you were talking brim spawn, and this question is, when does it start? I mean, really, is there a specific time of year or water temperature that you really start seeing the brim move up on the bank and the bass start chasing them?
It's usually around 70 degrees. You're going to see a ton of brim. And for my area right here in East Tennessee, it's usually like the last week of April. You're going to start to see those dudes move away. The air temperature's in the 80s. You're going to see a ton of brim move in. But the first moon in May is a guarantee. That's when we usually go. Actually, we go out and catch those guys. We love to eat them, bluegill and shellcracker both. And it was always that first moon in May, 3 days before, 3 days after that. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Well, going on the topic of the brim spawn, what are some key tactics you use to take advantage of those largemouth that are moving up and eating those brim? Are there a couple specific tactics or lures that you do, use and employ to catch those those big largemouth that are ambushing bluegill and brim?
Yes, my favorite, as we talked about a few weeks ago, is the Walking Pop 77. I catch more on that probably than I do any of the other baits as far as the brim spawn goes. And a lot of times you even see those fish before you catch them. You'll see them cruising around on those brim beds and etc. But you can catch them pretty good. And I like to throw it too, but the 77 casts so well, I kind of stick with it a little more. Is the spin. We catch a lot on the spin, and another one too is this dang walking boss. You can catch them on that fella too. I mean, where these brim are spawning here at home right now, like I said, the water's still low. We're still, I don't know, probably 1.5 feet from getting all the way to summer pool. So accurate casting is not, a real deal right now. long casting is, where you can take that walking boss and throw it a mile across those brim beds. They'll come and eat it too, especially if it's a big fish. If it, typically a fish over 4 pounds, he'll eat that walking boss. He'll come out there and clobber it. Especially if there's 3 or 4 of them around, it seems like that bigger fish will come out and he'll bite first with that bigger bait.
Definitely, it's they're all kind of. I imagine this as the bass on the brim spawn. I imagine this buffet line of brim all up on the bank. Just have all
Andy, we've got a pretty specific question here from a guy who lives in the Ozarks. He wants to know about post spawn on an Ozark lake with muddy water. Please explain color selection and whether you decide to stay shallow when you're looking for brim spawners, or you look deeper. So kind of break down post spawn on a kind of muddy water Ozark lake.
A muddy water Ozarks lake.
Yep.
Oh, that would be a pretty easy one for me. I would definitely stay shallow. Those fish in that dirty water tend to not go out deep, especially very quickly. I mean, you could be way up into the summer before you see those fish even think about moving out, because that dirty water harbors a lot of bait. That harbors a ton of shad, a ton of brim, and they don't go out there either. They're going to stay shallow. That bass usually will stay shallow, and that's one of my favorite ways or situations to get in, because I'm not a big deep water fisherman guy anyway. I'm a brim better. I'm a guy that likes to go around, crank shallow logs, flip to whatever I see. So when I've got a post-spawn situation where that water's dirty and I know those fish aren't going out there for a while, they're going to linger around. If you're going to crank, I'm going to throw a 2-0. I like a little bigger bait. I like that profile. And if it's really dirty, I'm going to, throw some type of chartreuse pattern. Or I've always got a shad pattern, something on, especially for post-spawn stuff.
No, definitely. So, leading off of that, I actually got a question that, we only know we got about 10 more minutes left with the Andy. We know that we want to get everyone's questions, in here for the night. Now, this goes back to shad. And Joe, I see you there on the live feed. Man, we got 10 more minutes with Andy. We want to make sure we get your questions answered. So getting off the brim, so those fish that don't follow the brim up to spawn and are more focused on the shad, he's saying that at his lake, he's got sees the shad break and sees the bass eating them, and then all of a sudden the activity goes dead, and they're out in that 7 to 15 foot zone, and he can't catch them once those shad quit moving around out in that mid-depth range. He's having trouble catching them. Are there any tactics that you could offer for him to catch those fish or attack those fish once that shad activity goes down in the mid-depth range?
When you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind was Hank Cherry. He's one of the best guys I've ever seen at figuring that type of deal out. I'm not that good at figuring out that mid-range when they're up chasing and where the hell do they go type deal. Hank catches them on that jerk master. He catches them on that jerk bait, and he's good at catching those fish that relate to nothing other than the bait. He's one of the very best in his country that chases the bait. He chases the bait, and he can figure those fish out so quickly. I'm not that great at that, but I know that spells for me jerk bait, jerk master. You catch a lot of fish on it. If you got the water clarity, you've got some pretty good clean water. I'm sure he'd skin them up on a jerk bait at that point.
Definitely. Well, going in here off the live feed, we want to make sure we get everyone's questions answered. So, are there anything? Can you offer them maybe one finesse tactic to attack those fish that are kind of maybe they're hanging out underneath that shad school, no longer active? Is there a finesse tactic that you use to attack those fish?
Yeah, I mean, you might actually throw a piece of plastic in there, that Ned rig type stuff that they're doing now. Be honest with you, when they do that to me, when they're not up busting, hell, I'm going somewhere else. Because I can't ever catch them all that well. Once they go down and quit feeding, I'm like, okay, you hear the crickets and the birds flying around. I'm like, all right, I've kind of lost my attention here. I'm going somewhere else. But yeah, I've actually caught them on a drop shot and stuff, suspended like that before. Something to fall down through them every now and then. If they're over a piece of structure or whatever, you stand a little better chance. But they're out in the middle of the lake roaming around. That's a pretty tough deal to catch them.
Definitely. Well, in terms of that brim spawn, do you think, this is a question off the live feed again here, do you think that those fish, if there's fish that live in that 1 to 4 foot range, even on a lake that's deep, you think there's a population of fish that stay between 1 and 4 feet, throughout the year, throughout that whole entire, through the post-spawn, through the summer? Is there a population, a sustainable population of fish in most lakes that stay that shallow?
Yes, there is. I made a living on them for about 20 years.
Look who just popped up. Look who just popped up. Yep.
Look at this guy that just popped up, Mr. Byron Velvick. Oh, now he's gone.
Oh, and then he's gone. he just showed up long enough to hear Andy say that and just disappeared. Andy, we've had a series of questions dealing relative to fishing pressure, not air pressure, not meteorological pressure, but fishing pressure. And let's try to kind of divert from thinking as a tournament guy. Say you're a guy who's out there on Chickamauga and you're not fishing a tournament, but God knows there's a lot of pressure on that thing. I mean,
yeah.
How exactly are you going to approach that this time of year specifically when you know for a fact that fish are going to be disturbed? I mean that's just the way it's going to be.
On a place here like Chickamauga, it's not very big. I mean, it's a pretty good sized reservoir, but it's not huge. There's not a lot you can do about it. You just got to get a little tricky, and as far as doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing, throwing the exactly the same thing that everybody else is throwing, you've got to be on kind of the cutting edge of, say, the EBS technology. I mean, do you want to be throwing the same old rattle trap that you've thrown and everybody else is throwing for the last 25 years that has BBs in a piece of plastic? Or do you want something a little new on the cutting edge that actually sounds like a bait fish or crawfish, etc.? You have to try things and be just a little different to kind of excel when you're talking about fishing pressure. Fishing pressure, to me, the way I've seen it and the way I've come up, is kind of the new weather. I mean, your fishing pressure on these lakes, especially these smaller lakes that are really good, you've got to factor that in, and especially if you're a tournament fisherman. Beaver Lake, for example, it's not a very big lake. Everybody throws the same thing. You have to be on the cutting edge of stuff that's happening then, not 2 weeks, not a year ago. You have to be on that cutting edge, and you've got to make those decisions to kind of figure out how can I get away from the pressure. If I can't get away from the pressure, what can I do to kind of help me get 4 or 5 extra bites a day? Is there a different bait out there? Is there a different technique? There's always something.
Definitely. Well, this question actually comes from a question we had on Facebook earlier today. Is when you are fishing a school of fish that you know is in a pressured lake, like say on the TVA, and it's a tournament or it's a weekend, and everyone's out there pounding those schools of fish that have been found out. Is there any tips or tactics that you do to make sure that those fish don't get, say, molested? Those fish don't get pressured from your boat. Is there anything you turn off your electronics? Is there anything that you do to make those fish that you're not known to them and try and keep them not pressured when you're fishing them?
Yeah, just common sense. You kind of hit on it right there. Turn your electronics off. Don't get in there and idle over the top of them. Cut off 50 yards before you get to the sweet spot. Have everything lined up till you know what you're throwing across and what you're dragging your bait to. Just use some common sense. Stay back, make a longer cast. Just any little bit of thing that you can do will help until you really catch that first one, that second fish. Then they're kind of keyed in. They know something's going on, and a lot of times there'll be a huge school of fish there. Hell, you can see them on the electronics. You'll catch one, you'll wind him in, you look on your electronics, you'll see them under the boat. There'll be 8 or 10 that follow him up, and you never get another bite. An hour later, you come back, make the same cast, you catch one first throw, you wind him in, there's 6 or 7 with him. You never get another bite. You just pull that school, you educate that school because somebody's been there all week long jacking on them, they get a little wise.
Definitely. Well, I know Byron's popping back in and out.
He's trying, man. He's trying.
He's trying
hard.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, we can see it. We keep seeing it, and then you keep disappearing on us.
Well,
Can
Andy,
you see me or not?
We can see it. Oh yeah,
We got you.
we can see you. We got you, Byron.
I had to go to my phone. I was on Windows 10. I turned my computer on, and all of a sudden they automatically jumped Windows 10 on me, and they started doing this download, and it's like only 4% complete. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So
the joy of life.
I know you got to get going here. One last final question for Andy here. This is specifically a guy on the live feed asking about line size and gear for the walk and pop. When you're throwing that walk and pop, what line are you using? Rod and reel. That's of course we all know it's your favorite bait, but he wants to know what are you using to fish that bait.
I got you. I use a 703 I rod. It's a little tippy rod. It's got some nice backbone, but it's tippy, so you can cast it accurately. I use Gamma 17 monofilament with a loose reel. Usually it's a 7 1-to-1 reel, and that's a pretty nice little combination. It's really smooth. It's really quick when you get a bite, and it's a bait that when it goes down, the fish eats it. Don't jerk like a wild man. Just wind into him, load the rod, let your mono have its little bit of stretch, let the hooks bury in, and just the battle's on. The very simple, rod and reel combination with old style monofilament line works very well.
Definitely. Well, that's something everyone can use that lure to take advantage of the brim spawn. So, Joel. Are we leading off here to the back end of this?
Yeah, I think we are, Andy. So I know you've got to bail out of here and kind of get going, but we appreciate your time. Real quickly before you go, you don't have to be in tournament mode for a little while now. So where are you going to fish and what for?
Oh, actually, I went on Chickamauga for about an hour today. Then the storms finally ran us off there just after a few minutes. Actually, I've got to go to Texas at the TTBC down at Lake Ray Roberts. I got to leave for that Sunday.
I totally forget about it. That's right. I'll see you down there. I totally forgot about that. Yep.
We're actually going to have a Livingston Live TTB special with all of our Livingston pros and guests and everything there. So we're going to be joining you guys during that tournament. So it's going to be a good time.
It's a good time. I love that. It's my favorite tournament of the year. Texas knows how to have a good time. They always take us to a lake that's got a lot of old big bass in it.
Definitely. Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time. We love hanging out with the GOAT and learning, having you spread your knowledge on us. So, Andy, thanks a ton for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time on Livingston Live, brother.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
All Bye, right. Andy.
See you, Byron.
Hi, guys. See you later, Andy.
All right, Byron. So now you have become the man on the spot. So we've just spent the last hour talking about the GOAT's 4 rules to spring fishing. But we're gonna go ahead and put you on the spot as far as this new bait that we keep hearing about. Now I know we haven't had a chance to really talk about it a heck of a lot, but just a little bit. And from what I understand, we're gonna roll a brand new bait out before too long.
Yeah, we're rolling a lot of brand new baits out. I've seen so many prototypes. I'm hoping you're talking about a swim bait, but I'm not sure if you're going with something
That's
else.
what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea which direction you were going with that. I'm like, boy, I've seen so many prototypes lately because Livingston's doing some amazing stuff.
No,
I was we're leading into it.
That's what I'm
talk about today.
No, we're leading into the swim bait. We're leading into the swim baits, Byron. So we're actually going to have you here in hopefully here a couple weeks when those swim baits land in the office. I know we got some, but the rest of those swim baits coming in here in a couple weeks, man, and it's going to be swim bait time, guys. Are there some options for people to fish those swim baits here post spawn and into the summer?
This is a great time when they're on those bluegill beds. I know Andy probably picked up on that. I just drove back from Amistad. I spent 3 hours driving there, did a little bit of hotel stuff, and just raced back to get here. I know Nick, you said 7:45 would be ideal, so thank you guys for letting me jump in. I'm sure Andy talked about it, that when those fish are bluegills crazy, and especially post-spawn when they're just really aggressive towards even baby bass. I used to catch a lot of big fish on baby bass, right after post-spawn. They were schooling on small bass. We're talking 6, 8, 10-inch, 12-inch bass. That's exactly what the Venom body style is. We came out with 2 body styles, and there's the Viper and the Venom. The Viper is the larger, wider panfish, gizzard, shad body. The Venom is the elongated trout, baby bass, blueback herring, elongated body. And those are 2 separate styles of body types. And those are the 2 predominant body types you have in those glide baits. And Livingston just did me a heck of a favor. They said, go out there, and if you can dream it, we can build it. And that's what's great about Livingston, man. You start talking to Eric and Robert and everybody there at the office, and I know you, Nick, had a lot to do with it. it's neat for everybody to get together and kind of all scratch our heads and start thinking, man, if we get to build the perfect swim bait, what is the wish list? What is the dream list? There's those mothers and those GAN crafts and those baits out there that are almost impossible to get your hands on, super expensive. And I have a lot of those baits, and I knew the properties of those baits. I knew what the glide looked like. I knew what the rate of fall looked like. I knew what I was looking for. My daughter's letting me know that goats. Speaking about goats, goats just showed up at the farm. So I can show you the goats that arrived at the farm. But the thing about these swim baits is that you got the ultimate glide built into a mass production bait. These things glide. Forget about everything else I'm going to talk about. The simple action alone is incredible. The action is just this thing. Each of these vipers and venoms, and there's a 6-inch viper, 6-inch venom, 8-inch viper, 8-inch venom. So it's 2 models, 2 different sizes, and these baits, just inherent in the property alone of the glide, is this long, almost like 2 body lengths before it turns back on itself. And as you roll this thing along, it's got a glide similar to these $200 and $300, $400 eBay, can't find them anywhere. You never want to throw them because they're works of art, Japanese hardwood glide baits. But we're building this thing, mass production. You don't have to spend $200, $300, $400 to get the same action, but there's so much more to the baits. They have a weight transfer system built into them, so you can, if any of the guys watching this remember the old True Tungsten, and I'm gonna own it, man. The True Tungsten guys had a system where you could pull the pin and change the weight within the body. Well, that was a great idea. So what the heck? It doesn't even exist in any other bait, but take those weights, put them in the body of the glide bait, and you can change the weight from being a subsurface surface bait if there's no balls in it at all to adding these gram balls, these 4 and 6 gram balls, and make that thing sink faster. And if you load these things up, it's the deepest glide you've ever thrown. You can throw it in windy conditions, in a chop, in current, and because it's got so many balls in the body, you can change the weight of this bait in the same bait just by taking balls out, adding balls to it. And then it just goes on and on, man. I mean, the barrel swivels that spin in the body, so you don't have to do the double split rings. The front hook has a feather on it, like all the top baits do. We like to put feathers on them to make it look like a little bit of flesh hanging off of them. And then, of course, EBS, like anything else. If you're throwing a swim bait out there, it's the first swim bait that actually is going to be talking to the fish, barking at the fish, and calling the fish to crush it.
Definitely.
So as we sort of lead into kind of the final few minutes here, we're going to ask for one last call for viewer questions here for Byron. But in the meantime, until midnight tomorrow, buy one Team Livingston series, that's the multi-touch, the EBS multi-touch, and get a free Pro series. So basically, buy one, get one free. BOGO, buy a Team Livingston series. Until midnight tomorrow night, you get a free Pro series. And while you're there, also, Nick, we've got so many little things going on here right now. We've got a chance to win, courtesy of the Facebook page. You can subscribe to the YouTube page. I mean, what else do we have as far as deals?
Yeah, so you can actually jump on the Facebook page real quickly here. I'm going to jump on and show you guys. We're giving away 5 Livingston Lures prize packs tonight, and you can actually jump on our Facebook page. Go find that Walking Boss Part 2 post. It's only a couple posts down. Type in fish catching machine. We're going to give away 5 Livingston Lures prize packs here tonight. And while everyone's on the live chat there asking your fishing questions, make sure to get your questions in here. We're going to get the last couple minutes to get Byron to answer your fishing questions and get that info to you. So make sure, get a Livingston Lures prize pack, chance to win one of those bad boys, jump on the Facebook page, find that Walking Boss Part 2 post, and go type in fish catching machine. We'll pick 5 here.
Really quickly here, one last reminder about Fish with a Pro. Now this is something that we started a couple of months ago, and we're gonna extend this through. I don't want to say it's going to go through at least the better part of the summer. Basically, you have the opportunity to have an all expense paid, and I mean all expense paid. We're talking about transportation, we're talking about hotels, we're talking about food, and you get the experience of fishing with the Livingston Pros on some of the best fisheries in the country. And we're going to have an announcement here over the next day or two. We'll release a press release with all the names of the winners, and we've got some people who are going to win some fantastic places to go. I mean, the experience of fishing with these guys is great, but secondarily, the places that we've chosen for people to fish with the pros, Nick, is just, it's the best fisheries in the country. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I wish I could win one of those fishing trips, but I specifically wrote the rules to it, and unfortunately, employees, fans, pro staff, sorry guys, you can't win. We apologize. but we definitely want to be able to give that opportunity to everyone. So going into this last few minutes here, getting some questions off of the live feed. I've been writing down all these questions here, and Byron, this goes to you on this post-spawn transition. These fish are moving off their beds, and is there anything when those fish shut down? This is a live feed question. When those fish shut down, and they're just coming off the spawn, those snakes, those old girls that are a couple inches thick, they used to be 7 pounds, now they're 5 pounds. Is there any specific technique that you use when those fish really get shut down right after the spawn?
Well, when they're shut down, obviously, basically that whole hard bait. Can you guys see me? The whole hard bait bite really goes away. It gets really tough. And again, I know a lot of guys pick up jerk baits at that time and fish a real slow jerk bait. And again, it's putting something slowly in front of them that's not moving a lot. And a jerk bait does shine again at that time. The water's a lot warmer now. And if you're going to throw, a hard bait of any kind, throwing a Livingston jerk bait, letting the sound do the work. But if it's not that, and if it's really dead, I mean, you got to go to the soft plastics. A lot of guys start. That's when shaky heads really shine. Guys pick up those spinning rods and throw those shaky heads, and a lot of guys, they're trying to eke out those limits, and they'll catch good fish, but they're good, to your point, Nick, tired, spawned out, lethargic, heading for the deep ledges, going to go out there and feed on that, get that summer pattern going, and they're making that move. And if it's not a jerk bait for me, and that's the one time that I really feel confident throwing a jerk bait, because it is the slowest thing going out there. The swim baits are too fast. Crankbaits are going. Forget about the pro rippers and all the lipless, because it's just a real slow time. You might get a fish and take an easy meal of one of our baits, or else pick up a shaky head. And I hate doing it, but a drop shot or a shaky head and a spinning rod, and start dissecting those transition areas from those coves out towards the main channel to that deep water where they're going for their summertime lair.
Definitely. Well, Joel, we're looking like the live feed. We're kind of getting through everyone's questions here. Do you have any final questions for Byron on any of our topics for tonight?
Yeah, Byron. So I don't think you got a chance to really kind of catch some of what Morgan said about the brim spawn. Let's do a little bit of work here. Let's translate things over a little bit more toward some of the West Coast guys, because obviously, a lot of the brim spawn stuff is more of a southern opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about the spring conditions and some of the laws as far as dealing with the conditions of bait fish on the West Coast and in the West. As far as shad and some of the other bait that we have over on the other side of the country versus like in the South where the brim spawn is a big deal.
Right. Yeah. It's a great question, Joel. It really is. You got the baby kokanings, in the Shasta and that whole California foothills. You got the Shasta, and with Shasta, you got the baby kokanings. You got the trout that are still being dumped by the Fish and Game. Lots of trout. Spring, you got a bunch of trout stocking programs going on. So these fish are, jacked out of their melons, in their head about the trout, and then the hitch, the California hitch, Clear Lake. Nobody ever knew what a hitch was until Clear Lake came along, and the hitch was where you put your boat together. That's what a hitch used to be. And California, a type of carpish bait fish, that's unique and indigenous to that California Clear Lake bite. But those bait fish, I even sit there and seen a lot of the lakes in California, the fish are more carnivorous, and it's not such bluegill they're going after. Like I said before, I've had some lakes in Southern California, they just crush baby bass. And the baby bass bite, school up on baby bass. They go after these 6, 8, 10-inch, 12-inch baby bass, and you have a whole school of wolf packs of largemouth working up against the seawalls of these city lakes and these lakes that I can think of, like Mission Viejo and Lake Forest and a lot of lakes down there in San Diego, where they're just crushing baby bass. And so there is a whole different, a lot of times a different food thing there. You don't have the shiners, and you don't have the bluegills are predominant, of course. But I like throwing. That's where I cut my eye teeth with swim baits on the salmon, the baby trout, and of course sea bass and bluegill too. But I didn't throw a lot of bluegill swim baits. I really didn't. And I actually feel this is something that I'm real strong about. I feel that, and I've heard this from a couple other swim bait guys, a bass is safer hitting an elongated body bait fish than he is a thick body bait fish. You have a better chance of dying if you eat a tilapia or a crappie or a bluegill, because they get that thing wedged in their mouth, and that's a hard thing to swallow, especially if it's a big bait. But the elongated baits, the venom body style bait, that's an easier to eat. So a lot of the swim bait guys will say, you'll outfish a big body bait by a narrow body bait a lot in swim bait fishing, and it's because it's an easier fish. They can see it, it's big, but they know it's going to slide down their throat a lot easier, and it's not going to get stuck in their mouth, and they're going to have to rotate it around, and you're going to, you know, we've all seen big baits practically dead or half dying on the surface because they got a tilapia or a bluegill or a crappie or something, or a bullhead, something stuck in their mouth that they couldn't ingest and they couldn't die or spit out either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's an interesting theory. I've not thought of that before, but why not?
It's predominant in the swim bait guys. I'll tell you, I'm more confident fishing a narrow body bait swim bait than I am a wide body bait. You know, and I know these bull shads and, you know, all these guys with these big gizzard shads. That's a fun, pretty awesome bait to throw. But you gotta think that a fish takes a real chance. I mean, he's challenged to take a shot at that big bait. They crush him, but they're crushing him with a little bit higher risk factor than they are in a long-weighted trout body, hitch body, baby bass body, blueback herring body, venom. We call it, it's our venom. Our venom, I believe, will outfish our viper just because fish are more prone to hitting that narrower bait body, the silhouette.
Definitely makes sense, Byron. I don't feel like eating anything that'll kill me. That'll be
no, not good. Well, Byron, thanks for the last minute drop by. I kind of wasn't sure we're gonna have another guest, but look what you showed up and you saved the day here in the last 15 minutes because Morgan had to bail out. So it was good to get some. Now listen, we're kind of waiting on the special swim bait introduction. I mean, this is something we've talked about over the past handful of weeks, and it's coming. Just heads up to you guys out there. Livingston Live. We'll have Byron back to officially introduce these baits that we've talked about. And I know you've seen pictures here and there, but we're going to throw out the official introduction of these baits real soon. And Byron, I know you're just dying to do it.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the day I get to actually sit there and put them out here and show them to everybody that's watching. And it's gonna be hard to shut me up for an hour and a half because that's when you better pack a lunch, get some coffee, bring your Starbucks because I'm just gonna be chattering like a monkey in a tree for a good long. You guys are gonna have to shut me down. You're going too long. You're going too much.
It's all good. Appreciate it, brother. Good seeing you, Brian.
Yeah, guys, thanks for being patient with me. I really appreciate it.
See you, bud.
Thank you.
Well, Joel, I think that is about it, my man.
All right, so one more down. So obviously, a quick reminder, folks, if you didn't happen to catch this whole thing live, you can actually view this a little bit later. This will be posted up on the Livingston Lures Facebook page. The link will be right there at the top of the page. It's available. I mean, Andy had some great information. Byron had some great information. Of course, if you missed it, just go back and rewind it and watch it again.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that people ask all the time. You can always jump on, watch it, rewatch it. I'll actually go back through and edit some of the stuff out just because, of course, no one wants to sit through technical difficulties. We run into it all the time with the live feed.
We don't want to sit through it.
Yeah, we don't want to sit through it. That's the worst thing to sit through in the live feed. But it is the reality of live internet feeds. So, Google, we appreciate you. But come on, clean up the technical aspect and we'll be happy. But, Joel, I appreciate it, brother. Till next
Let's do one last quick reminder here of the deal of the night. Now we have until midnight tomorrow. So this is not a deal you should wait on. You should get on this as soon as you can because you can buy one of the EBS multi-touch Team Livingston baits and you get a Pro Series for free. So basically it's a buy one get one. I mean you can buy. We've got the two up there. You can see the Walking Boss 2, which as we have noted on the Facebook page is back in stock again. That bait has been out of stock for a little bit of a while because it's a really good bait. But buy one, get one free. While you're there, go surf around the website. Take a look at the Fish of the Pro sweepstakes. Take a look at some of the blogs and so forth. Take a look at a quick reminder. Look at the Bassmaster standings because two of the Team Livingston pros, Porosnik and Hank Cherry, are in the top 6 down here at Toledo Bend. So there's a lot going on, a lot to see at livingstonlures.com.
Yeah, definitely. So jump on livingstonlures.com, and also if you're on Snapchat, we just got a Snapchat. We just started up one there, a Livingston Lures Snapchat. Follow us this weekend. Find us at just Livingston Lures on Snapchat. You'll also find us on Twitter, Facebook, but we're going to be at the Toledo Bend event and giving you some behind-the-scenes looks and allowing you to ask your questions directly with them as we're catching up with them during the tournament. So it'll be it'll be like a remote Livingston Live.
It'll be a good time.
So it'll be a good time. And next Thursday, Texas Toyota Bass Classic Fest there up at what is it at Conroe or not Conroe? It's at
Lake Ray Roberts, which I think is the name that the rest of the world does not know yet. But mark my words, my friends. Wait until you see some of the fish that come out of this lake.
It's going to be a good one. I wish I could head up there. I'm excited for Toledo
Yep.
Bend this weekend, though. So, Joel,
Yep.
hey, I will see you here in less than 24 hours over at Toledo Bend. And
Sounds good.
everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in to Livingston Live. Make sure you subscribe down in the subscription box there on YouTube so you can get more fishing, great fishing information, and come in here and ask your fishing questions for our Team Livingston pros. So, till next time, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Joel, have a good night, brother. Don't have too much fun there at Toledo Bend.
Try not.